Today, we'll be hearing from Canada Life on how the ongoing pandemic has changed the financial services landscape in Canada and how advisors have adapted to help ensure Canadians are financially prepared for the future. My name is Alex Dragola, and I'm the Director of Parliamentary Affairs and SME Policy at the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and I'm pleased to be moderating today's webinar. Before we begin, I would like to thank all of the incredible sponsors who have made our Canadian Business Resiliency Network possible. In particular, I would like to highlight and thank today's webinar partner, Canada Life, for the generous support of the CBRN during the COVID-19 pandemic. Joining us from Canada Life today is Hugh Moncrief, the Executive President for Advisory Network and Industry Affairs. Hugh is responsible for Canada Life's distribution strategy, delivering an exceptional advisor value proposition, and is also working to shape a public policy environment that supports advisors and customers by leading the company's industry affairs activities. So without further ado, I will turn it over to you, Hugh, to share your expertise with the group.
Excellent. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and I just want to thank the Chamber for having us share some ideas with you, and also look forward to some dialogue and some questions. As Ala mentioned, I have the good fortune of being associated with Canada Life and working with advisors from across the country, small firms, large firms, in helping them, help them build better businesses to serve Canadians, and in likely many cases serve businesses such as yourselves. So today's talk is really a bit of a reflection on what we've learned through these interesting 9 months, how it's impacted us, how it's impacted our staff, lessons learned, and also probably moving a bit to our front foot in terms of how we want to engage with small businesses across the country and Canadians. So, maybe Rebecca, the agenda slide, I think you've got it there. Like I said, what we're going to cover is basically some of the lessons learned, some of the trends we're seeing in the Canadian marketplace, talking a bit about advice. I think in the Canadian marketplace, as well as North America, in fact, globally, there's a lot of information that's available to people. It's what do you do with that information? And so the power of advice. And then, as I mentioned, really looking forward to perhaps some questions. So next slide, Rebecca, please. Canada Life knows business in Canada. And there's some interesting stats there. And I like to say to people, we're not good because we're old because we're good. And, over 170 years of keeping promises and touching the lives of 1 in 3 Canadians. And I think it's really important for folks to know that our business is actually really made up of all of your businesses. So our business doesn't work unless yours are doing well and prospering and growing, etc. So it's a very, very integrated model. I grew up in a small business, so I know how that works, and the highs and lows. So there's a very, very symbiotic relationship. I think also importantly, we've been supporting the Chamber for close to 100 years, which I think is a pretty cool statistic. So, through a couple of world wars, a depression, now a pandemic, there's nothing that we can't get through together. And so we really value the relationship that we have with the Chamber, both nationally, but frankly, really important. It's really the local communities, the local chambers, where the action really happens. And I know that many of our advisors are part of those chambers from coast to coast, and it's that sort of that network that makes the whole so much stronger. And of course, which is very important to us. We're also really proud of our regional leadership in our 5 main regions in the country: Regina, Montreal, Toronto, London, and Winnipeg. Where we have some of our larger corporate head offices where we have a very, very good relationship. So many of you have likely seen our impact on group insurance in Canada, where how we look after small to medium-sized enterprises and large ones, and we're proud of that business. It's very important. Health and wellness is massively important, and Canadians are asking more and more questions. So when you marry sort of the group side of the business and then the individual side, where people really think about their future, do I have enough? Do I have a plan? All the what ifs. It's a powerful combination. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we decided when it was really clear that this COVID-19 issue was going to be bigger than anyone wanted it to be. And I think, like many of you, you probably reflected on, okay, what's really important right now? What can I control? And what can't I control? And really trying to focus your efforts, your energy, and frankly, your attitude on the things that you could control. So what we decided is two things. One, keep our people safe. Absolute number one priority, keep our people safe, whether it's our clients, our staff, our advisors. Secondly, keep our promises to Canadians. We are an essential service. We pay death claims, we pay annuity payments, we take care of health insurance claims and dental claims and whatnot. So it was that sort of fine balance between keeping the lights on, at the same time, having good corporate responsibility, ensure that we keep our people safe. And that, I'm sure all of you on the phone or the Teams call have sort of been exercising that balance, right? Ensuring that you're following the rules, but at the same time, I don't think we want to promote sort of a cancel culture because small business drives Canada. And I think that's important for all to remember. And you know, now as we sort of gotten into the home stretch here, or the next wave, I should say, you know, whether it's social distancing, and then for those of you in Manitoba, you've heard recently about this code red issue where they're really locking down. I think all regions of Canada have experienced some highs and lows through this. And I think the big message that we've learned is be nimble. Be nimble and communicate. You know, if you're not telling your customers or your suppliers what the story is, they're going to make up their own narrative. So to the extent possible, we've been way out in front with our 10,000 Canadian employees, whether it's town halls, whether it's emails, whether it's a weekend email, et cetera, just staying in front of it. But always going back to our two principles: keep our people safe and keep our promises to our customers. And we'll get into some of it as we talk about the customer bit, but one of the benefits, and you might have seen this in your, whether it's your practices or your businesses, pre-COVID, it used to take us a while to make a decision, quite frankly. And what we found is when the chips are down, you can make good decisions fast. And one of the things that we're trying to continue our momentum through this interesting time is really being not aggressive, because we have to take a balanced approach. But I think when the chips are down, you can make the right decisions faster than in the past. And that's been a real learning from us. And then the second thing, I think, for all of us is digital. Virtual is here to stay. And ways of working and physical space, a lot of adaptation for all of us in the future. It's actually quite exciting. Some of you may know we have billions and billions of dollars of money invested in real estate. And so you might say, oh, how do you feel about that? It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity because, you know, places like Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, you hear noise about people moving to the suburbs and things like that. That's all very interesting. But at the same time, we see huge opportunity for those more dense urban centers, just in different ways. And I think that's our opportunity, not just in Canada, but around the globe. Next slide, please, Rebecca. Thank you. And as we sort of, you know, reflect on our two principles and running our business and what have you, we also look to outside experts. And I think that's maybe a bit of a um, a reminder for all of us. And the fact that you're on this call seeking perspective from someone else or other peers that you talk to in other industries, so important to sort of get outside of our own sandbox and get some either empirical data, quantitative, third party. And in our case, we hired Angus Reid to help us with a bit of an overview on what are Canadians feeling through this, and what's their sort of their emotional EQ feeling, and what are their stress levels, and how then should we be serving them and or adapting. So as we think about building our businesses and building our networks and looking for other opportunities, so important to engage with other experts that can help you maybe challenge the way that you think, and or give you some good ideas. So some of the lessons that we've learned is Canadians are following the rules by and large, which I think has been hugely helpful in terms of this pandemic. Stress levels, and we're going to get into a bit of it a little later, but stress levels by and large are remaining relatively steady. I'm not sure what that means, whether it's steady high or steady low, but nonetheless steady. And I think folks are realizing that this will not be over in a hurry, and I think that's really important, because again, it offers companies like yours the opportunity to pivot, to innovate, to win, while perhaps others might be a bit defensive. So this isn't going away right away. So how do we make the best of it? And another point which was very interesting is, and I don't know about all of the folks on the call here, but I know that we've heard from a lot of businesses that they've been busier than ever, in some cases. Now, some sectors, of course, we know are impacted perhaps more than others, restaurants, et cetera, and that's a very real issue and one that is massively important. And at the same time, there are some other businesses that have never been busier. So it's interesting to see how it's flowing through the system. And then there's uncertainty of you see housing prices in Toronto, and you see the stock market, and you look at the underlying fundamentals. There seems to be, is it sort of enthusiastic optimism? Not sure, but there's cash on the sidelines in terms of investing. Is it a good time to invest? Is it not? Should I put more capital into my business? Yes or no? So I don't think anyone has a crystal ball, but as we see some of the moves from the feds in terms of some of the policies they're putting in place, as we all know, there's pros and cons with some of them. But suffice to say that interest rates are going to be low for a long time, and that might help people choosing to borrow money. So as you think about these lessons, I don't think there's anything revolutionary in here, but it did validate some of our thinking, and enabled some, what I would say, more sort of strategic decisions on how we want to move forward. Next slide, please, Rebecca. About 3 years ago, we made a decision to invest in technology. We had some old systems. I noticed on the attendance list today that there's a few people that are more aligned with our company than others. So you might be agreeing with me that we had some older systems. So we invested heavily in the system. Some of it was cyber, some of it was health, but a lot of it was virtual and digital collaboration, and online productivity tools. And this has been a saving grace for us. I think we have about 10,000 employees, and I'd say 8,500 are working from home today and have been, frankly, since March. It'll be interesting to measure productivity, but we've seen really no decreases in productivity. There's a couple of areas that are slower than others, like, depending on which segments of the economy they serve. but technology's been a massive win for us. And again, for you as business owners, really challenging yourselves on where to invest, how to invest, because as we think about the folks that we serve, intermediaries like brokers and advisors, in some ways the experience and the speed and accuracy is and the client experience is now become an absolute total table stake. Just make it easy, the easy button. Let me transact quickly, digitally, non face to face. And I think all of our customers for sure are feeling more and more confident in having a relationship in a virtual way. That's not to say that we're abandoning, obviously, more traditional forms of client and advisor engagement, but I think it's just a good example of being open to a spectrum of how you serve your clients, which has been a real eye opener for us, mainly because we're probably a bit more of a legacy organization than most. And the next slide, Rebecca, if you will, no surprise, this was a bit of a snapshot of some research that we did with an outfit out of the States called LEMRA. It's an industry thing, and Ernst & Young. So I won't get into all the details, but really, it's exponential growth in terms of the digital tools, in terms of how to engage with clients and our advisors, and adoption of technology can look a lot like a hockey stick in terms of utilization, and we saw that very much within our organization, where I think some of our stakeholders felt that the technology was a nice to have, but when they were faced with the choice of either not being able to serve the clients or using technology to do it, we literally saw our utilization go through the roof. And we actually don't think it's ever going to go back, quite frankly, to the former forms of paper and what have you, snail mail, etc. So it's really shocked the system in a very positive way. And I think also clients more and more, frankly, are just expecting that. They're looking for your website. They're looking for a chat function. They're looking for client testimonials. They're looking for reviews of your firms. And so having a thoughtful social and or digital presence, that's not just for sort of digital keeners. That's just the way it works now. So again, thinking about how you harness that to your advantage, to again set the narrative, make sure that you're telling your story is important. And for those of you in some of the major cities across the country, you might have noticed the odd bus driving by with the Canada Life sign all over it, or subway cars and streetcars and billboards all around the country. We're really being proactive in getting our Canada Life brand in the market, because it's a story that we're excited to tell, and so we're throwing a bit of money at it to sort of raise awareness, which we hope will pay dividends. The next slide is another bit of a learning for us. I think sometimes we think of technology as perhaps being I don't know, something for younger populations. The reality is, somebody said this to me once, technology is largely defined by capabilities that were introduced in your lifetime. So for my children who are 19 and 21, they actually don't see Wi-Fi as technology. They just see it as Wi-Fi. For my uncle who's 80, he views it as technology. So as we think about Amazon and Tesla and all these different organizations, for some parts of this multi-generational marketplace, it's a big deal. For others, it's just the way it works. So as you're thinking about how you're delivering your technology and how you engage with clients and how you hold yourself out, don't assume that older people can't adopt it and leverage it, and don't assume that younger people quite get it either. We found that just being relevant and letting the marketplace sort of choose how they want to interact with you in more of a spectrum is really quite helpful. Over time, of course, the market is very efficient, and people will take the right path that, whether it's economies of scale, time, what's in it for them. But that's been a bit of a learning for us is understanding how we fit with the different generations and how do they define that sort of digital relationship with us. Next slide, please. And this is probably in many ways a bit of the money slide in my view. And why do I say that? Canada is the greatest country in the world because of the mosaic of people that live in it. And as I think about all the fun that's going to be happening tomorrow night in the U.S., I couldn't be happier to be in a country like ours with our inclusive and sort of massively diverse culture. So as we think about how we serve different people and where they're coming from and where they're beginning and what they want to build, again, how we engage with them is so important. And not to sort of belabor the digital bit though, but digitization is the great sort of democratization of access. And because everyone's got a cell phone, and what are the apps that you have on their cell phones would be the question to ask, and it's something that we're asking ourselves because this is really exciting in terms of the future of Canada and frankly the future of business in Canada is really in the hands of the next generation of Canadians and the generations to follow. So again, we're trying to nurture that relationship with folks to be relevant and to understand where they're coming from and what's important to them. Next slide, please, Rebecca. So in many ways, part of what we've been talking about, or I've been maybe a bit focused on, is more the bottom up. How it works in the economy, what's working, what's not, people, businesses, et cetera, growth. But we also have in Canada a strong rule of law and some very interested policymakers, both federally and provincially. And in our business, that's a good thing. One of the things that we try to manage, however, is it's really important that Canadians have access to advice, access to products which help them either protect their families, protect their business, save for retirement, and frankly, draw down to decumulate those assets. So we work very, very closely with regulators to ensure that there's a good marketplace where we don't get too far ahead of ourselves in terms of strict regulations. We've seen that around the world, in particular in the United Kingdom, where the government moved a wee bit fast on a few things, and there were unintended consequences. So, for what it's worth, many of you are really benefactors of what I would call an extremely stable financial system in Canada with very rigorous checks and balances on companies like ours and others. But at the same time, we've got to also understand that it's an ultra competitive environment, economy. There's lots of US and international firms that are competing for the same dollar. So it's a balance. Companies like ours and our peers, I think it's really important for you to know that obviously, I'm a Canada Life guy, but we have amazing relationships with our partner companies across Canada in really helping ensure a strong financial services industry, and because it's important that we're all in this together. Next slide, please. And one of the reasons why it's important to have good policies is to ensure that we're taking care of people. And so going back to some of the research that we did with Angus Reid, we know that Canadians are concerned about the economy and their own finances. And we also know that being worried about something is normal and natural. And an important first step to dealing with that is getting some advice. Like, what are the facts? Where are you at? How's your balance sheet look like? How are your receivables look like? How's your pricing power in the market? Get a fact base. Where can you compete? Which products should you maybe stop selling, or perhaps looking to pivot to some other capabilities? So no different than how you're looking at your business. We try to help Canadians understand their situation through a process, through guidance, and bringing real experts, and ultimately with our amazing advisors, financial security advisors, in giving clients confidence, whether it's a small business, or a family situation. And they do that through a customized process to meet your needs, specifically, which frankly is all that really matters when you really get down to it. Next slide, please, Rebecca. One of the things that we also took action on, obviously giving lots of advice, understanding what's happening out there, but let's face it, things are tough, right? Like let's not diminish this. People are a bit worried. Certain industries are hit hard, and we took some action throughout the year to support business owners. We cut our group health insurance premiums on our group plan customers, giving more than 26,000 of our business customers much needed financial relief, because they weren't actually able to use the services that we were charging them for. So we stopped charging the group plans. We also made it easier for people to buy life insurance. The irony is, during a pandemic, you'd think that companies like ours might perhaps be a wee bit more concerned, whereas in fact we actually reduced some of our requirements for people to buy life insurance, because it's never been so important. And we also, for many clients who have mortgages with us, we deferred payments, and we also set up a process where if people could not afford their premiums, we had a facility in place to defer those as well. Some of it worked great for lots of people, whether it's a small number or a big number. It was important to those people. So actions like that collectively were very helpful, we think. And then another area which we doubled down on was our workplace strategies for mental health. And we brought a lot of educational tools to help support good mental health at work and at home for Canadians. Because this mental health issue is probably, to me, the big issue coming out of this. You can throw money at a problem, but I think really understanding the mental health of Canadians, that to me feels like a massive priority for companies like ours, but also policymakers. So next slide, please, Rebecca. So as we look to the future, as I said earlier, we are a company made up of small businesses, and they are great small businesses. And so as we've been learning through this COVID time and understand Canadians and understand the future, we're actually doubling down on investing in our advisory network, and giving them enhanced tools, because if anything, throughout this whole period of time, access to real quality advice has never been important. Secondly, I think sometimes we forget about this, there continues to be looming a massive intergenerational transfer of wealth in the next few years. And this is important for you and us as business owners and corporations. I think in many ways, what we should be thinking about is capacity. Can you handle what's coming? Is something that's on our mind. So we're very focused on growth. Um, Product matters. Whether your product is a manufacturing product, service industry, what have you, excellence matters. And what we've seen over the last 10 years, 15 years in our industry in particular, products have been commoditized. And so you just got to be good. Like you just can't show up without a great product. That's a starting point. And then you layer in the access, digital, advisor experience, client experience, customer experience. So product matters. Talent, um, people matter. Go figure. But as we look to the future in our industry, anyways, succession matters. Who are the future leaders? Who are the future leaders to carry the torch? Or for some of you who have a small, medium-sized business, how are you going to monetize your business? How are you going to let go? How are you going to transition? Is it going to be a family member? How are you going to do that? What about the other family members? How are they going to feel? So being thoughtful about how to transition business is massively important. I'm sure, Ala, you and your team have sessions on that and workshops, because it's so important, especially when you have a business that's not so much an income business, but rather actually an enterprise that goes beyond the founder. Having that clean succession is so important, because succession events can trigger competition issues. And I'm sure all of you have seen that. If you've bought a business or sold a business or tried to introduce some change in the business, the marketplace is very efficient at sort of zeroing in on that. And I think lastly, in terms of some of our guiding principles, um, we're sort of in the, not sort of, we are in the business of keeping promises at the end of the day. So our strength and stability is something we're proud of. It's not easy because sometimes we're probably more conservative than other companies, but that's okay. That's part of our sort of go forward principles. And again, as you think about your key areas of focus, what your differentiators, those are some of ours in terms of those four buckets of value. I think the question for you folks is, what are yours, and can you point to them? And if you have something on a page, are there supporting actions that you're either spending either time or money in supporting? Last page, please, Rebecca, or second last rather. Maybe a few key takeaways that I've sort of touched on, and hopefully we can chat a bit, is, and some of you might have seen some of the ads on TV. This is one of this screenshot from that. But now more than ever, a little guidance and advice goes a long way. And I think I've spoken to that. A lot of our business owner clients are really understanding the power of a relationship in terms of their benefits and how they serve their customers, and super important, how they're supporting their staff through this. Whether it's employee assistance programs, the break box thing that I referred to earlier in terms of some tactics to support people at work. It's been very helpful. And for those of you that are looking for resources, there's tons of very interesting and useful financial literacy materials that we have access to, and other firms. I think it's really just important that you make some of these available to your employees and yourselves, for that matter, because there's no shortage of information. It's bring that advice lens to it that's helpful. And a fun thing, last slide, is we've put out a challenge to businesses across Canada. If you flip the page there, Rebecca, we're calling this the Canada Life Business Boost, and so we're going to reward 12 or so small businesses with a grant of $10,000, and you can apply online, and you can see that there. What is it? It's really just to sort of say thank you, and highlight some businesses that have either innovated during this time, perhaps they've pivoted to some unique offering, perhaps they've shown incredible resilience. Um, it's not a ton of money. It's really just a way of saying sort of thank you, and maybe putting a little sort of competition out there for small businesses across Canada. So I would encourage you to check that out. And we're looking for a mix of businesses, and we're looking for businesses across Canada to sort of profile them and recognize their amazing efforts. And maybe they can set an example for others in their community, because I think that really speaks to what the Chambers tries to do is bring a little bit of collaboration to businesses of all types in the communities in which they serve. So maybe with that, Ala, I think I just want to say thank you for the time. These are sort of my perspectives, our company's perspectives. We're not perfect. We're learning every day. We love how we've handled things so far. There's still a lot to do. Keep our people safe, though, and keep our promises have really served us well. And then as we look at how the rest of the country and other companies are dealing with this issue, what lessons can we learn, right? How can we come out of this stronger than we went into it? I think is our challenge for our team, and maybe something that this crowd can consider as we really sort of drive forward. Because I think 21 is going to be a good year. It won't be easy, but hey, that's what it's business, right? And that's what people like you on the phone are special, because you drive the Canadian economy, and we're grateful for it. So maybe I'll turn it back over to you, Ella, for any Q&A, or maybe there's some Slido stuff.
Perfect. Well, I just want to say thank you. That was a very insightful and very timely presentation. And I think, the Canada Life Business Boost Grant will definitely go a long way for folks, for sure. Just a reminder for those on the phone that if you do have a question, to submit it through Slido and our event code is #7863. We do have quite a number of questions coming in already throughout the presentation, so we'll start with those ones. First off, for you, Hugh, is how can we be sure that our investment decisions are the right ones during the pandemic, or that they are prepared for future turbulence?
Are there any other easy questions, or is this how we're starting, Ella?
Yeah, no, we start with the hard ones. The easy part is over.
No, it's a great question, and here's how I would answer that, and that is, do you actually understand the investment plan that you have? And what do I mean by that? Are your goals clear? Are you clear on the amount of risk that you are comfortable taking? Is your duration or timeline in line with that risk that I referred to earlier? So those are just 3 or 4 very small dimensions. But what I would say is there's many types of different types of plans. It really depends on where you're at, what are your goals, and try to tune out the water cooler talk. Not that we stand by water coolers anymore, but I'm getting 6%, you're getting 4%, therefore mine is better. It's not better. It's probably just different. And so I would encourage you to consider that. The second part is really understanding the product. All too often, I see client situations where they really perhaps where we have some issues. They may not have fully understood what they purchased, and I think it's really important for you to understand, well, what is it? How does it work? What is the process that the company came to build that for me? And then you make your own judgment from there.
Okay, great. Similar question. Kind of spawning off of that is what role will digital tools and technology play in the transfer of wealth from baby boomers between now and the next 5 or 6 years?
it's never been easier for money to move. And so in Canada, we have a very, very strong banking system. I think we will see the emergence of alternative financial institutions, digitally based. We as a company are invested in a number of them, whether they are on the accumulation side, the robo advice side, the mortgage side. So what I would say is, if you look at if you look at the massive role that banks play in Canada, and a very important role, they too are investing significantly in digital to ensure they put their arms around their clients, because money can move faster than ever. So as there's more money coming in the system, I think we can fully expect that it will go to different places. So that would be how I would frame it.
So, I mean, similar to that question, we have someone asking if you have any recommendations for the best technology tools for startups, whether it's sales, marketing, customer management, or finances.
I'm the least qualified person to answer that question. What I would say is there's lots of options out there, and I would encourage you to do your homework. But similar to how we reached out to Angus Reid, if you're interested in enhancing your digital capabilities, you're going to have to spend some money on it. Honestly, I would really encourage the folks on the phone. This is not a do-it-yourself thing. I see too many examples of websites that overpromise and underdeliver. They'll have a blog, but the last entry will be like the spring of 2016. Basically, what you're telling your customer is you haven't done anything for 4 years. So if you're going to invest in digital or digital tools, I'd frankly find an expert in your community, pay some money, and develop a plan, and probably take the crawl, walk, run approach. Don't go too fast right out of the gate, because you'll bump into things.
Perfect. Another question here is, how important do you think finding the right talent is in building a successful business? And do you have any tips for the right approach?
I think it's the most important thing. People matter, ideas matter, conviction matters, culture matters, trustworthiness matters, diversity matters, and so a business is really in many ways a group of people coming together to make decisions together every day. Whether you're on an assembly line, you're making decisions on that assembly line. If you're a service provider in a very sort of intellectual, intense firm, like a law firm, what have you, you're making decisions every day. So I can't say enough about talent. In terms of techniques and what to look for, I think alignment is an obvious one. But also increasingly diversity. If we're simply attracting what we believe to be true, that will only take you so far. So I think challenging ourselves on ideas and on different ways of looking at problems is hugely important. And then again, back to the comment around digital. There are many very qualified human resource firms that can help with these sorts of engagements. To perhaps at the very basic level, what is the problem that you're trying to solve through talent? And do you have the right problems framed, as opposed to bringing someone on, they didn't meet your expectations? Well, were your expectations clear? And that's one that I see a lot in advisor businesses anyways, where partnerships don't work because they both thought they didn't have alignment on the job at hand. So it's helpful to understand the problem that you're trying to solve.
Perfect. During your presentation, you were mentioning whether Canadians are worried about their personal finances and the shifting outlook of Canadians. One of the questions we have here is, what's driving the concerns of Canadians about about their personal finances? I mean, I think there's some of the more obvious ones of COVID and job security, but is there anything beyond that?
Well, I, again, I'm not an expert, but I think what has been illustrated through this period of time is that not all jobs are responding the same way. So in many ways, it's a tale of two cities. There are people that have never been busier and making a lot of money, and that's great. And housing prices are going through the roof. And who's buying these houses? Well, who's buying them are people that are frankly not really affected by the pandemic. And so what we've seen is lower, more hourly wage earners. They're really, really suffering, like really suffering. So, um, I'd say that I think there's also a little bit of concern about the massive federal deficits that we're building in terms of how will that sort itself out over the coming decade, because it will take a decade. So I think I think people are concerned for the right reasons. Whether it's tax policies in the future, whether it's will I have a job? How long will these benefits last? Um, so yeah, it's I don't think there's any real magic to it. It's a concerning time. At the same time, in some ways, we're also very lucky that we have the ability to support the Canadian economy, and we have such great companies like the folks on this phone. So yeah, not a great answer, but it's actually quite complicated because how do you really get into what's out there?
Yeah, no, I think that's a question that we would take another hour-long webinar to answer for sure. So with that, I mean, we are nearing the end of our time here, and those are all the questions that we have through Slido. Hugh, I mean, is there any kind of final words you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I thought I'd just share a few of the things that we've been up to, some of the things that we've seen. Love the strong relationship with the chamber. You do amazing work helping companies across the country. I think that we're well positioned for the future as an economy and as business owners. And I think sessions like this, whether it's someone like me or someone from a different industry, just good to share ideas and collaborate. So I really appreciate the opportunity, and I wish everyone the very, very best, and stay safe.
Perfect. Well, on behalf of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, we want to thank you and Canada Life for taking the time to put on this very informative webinar and for the ongoing support of our CBRN. And again, there's a couple of folks who are asking about the slides today. This presentation is being recorded and it will be posted on the CBRN website, and the slides will be circulated to all of the registrants. On behalf of the Canadian Chamber, I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. You can learn more about the Chamber's efforts and access more resources on our website at chamber.ca. Hugh, thank you again for your time. And with that, we'll say goodbye.
Okay, thanks, Ella. Take care, everyone. Cheers.